It's just a dream, Joanna whispered into the stiff breeze blowing right into her face. Nothing but a dream and a curse. She knew it, of course, but that didn't make her situation any better. The air was still cold, the water around her feet felt freezing, and the damp smell stung her nostrils. It didn't matter if it was just a dream, if it felt real to her. Joanna bit her lip and closed her eyes for a moment. Her grandma had said as much, too. What's the difference between something that feels real and something that is? As long as you fear it, it can hurt you. And no matter how hard she struggled, deep inside her mind, Joanna was terrified. A groan escaped her lips as she tried to lift her foot again, but felt it stuck in the mud. The grey, dead swamp around her was getting more and more real, more and more intense with every passing fearful thought. She could feel something crawling over her right foot deep beneath the water's line, inside the mud, and knew that she shouldn't let it bother her. But it did. Just a dream, Joanna, she told herself again, still hoping to make herself believe, even though it hadn't worked at all since she had woken up here after going to bed in her apartment. Another stiff breeze blew through the area, made its way between the dead trees, dead grass, and stinking water of the swamp. It hit her right in the face, and Joanna couldn't help but close her eyes. It's meant to hurt you, not kill you. She wants to frighten you, not get you out of the way, she told herself. It didn't help much. Joanna groaned, then gripped her thigh and pulled at her leg. The bog her foot was stuck in finally relented, and Joanna felt herself coming free and took a step. Her calf disappeared beneath the water, and she could feel cold mud swallowing her foot again, not even a split second later. She was shivering and panting. It was hard moving in here, insanely so. Every single step took her minutes and seemed to sap every bit of strength she had. But it was important to keep moving. Staying still. That was something one could do if one had years or decades of experience with curses like that. Like her grandma. She probably wouldn't even need to move a single finger and would find herself back in her bed, completely unbothered by the experience. Sadly, Joanna wasn't like that. She'd heard stories and listened to her grandma's tales, but she had never found it in her to follow her or her aunt down that particular path. Not that she didn't believe them. No, to the contrary. She had seen and heard enough of curses and the mystic arts to last her a lifetime. Her grandma's stories had been one of the reasons why she had opened such a shop. But she had never been interested in doing more than maybe selling the odd blessed trinket or occult accessory. Working with curses and the like, that was her aunt's whole thing. She pulled up her other leg while breathing heavily, felt it come loose and sat it down in front of herself. If she hurried, she might reach the patch of soft dirt around that big dead tree before she'd wake up, Joanna told herself, and for the first time in what felt like an eternity, she smiled. The world of this curse was fucked. She had no idea how or if time passed here. All she could see was this dreadful grey swamp, never-ending, stretched out in all directions while this thick fog covered the land. All she could see were pale, dead trees, sick grey mud, rotten plants and pools of water all around her. The sun that weakly illuminated this place didn't move either, so Joanna couldn't even say how long she'd been stuck in here. But at least now, she could give herself some kind of objective. Reach the tree, pull yourself up on it, and get your feet out of the mud. She would try. Joanna felt the fear lessening, and the tension no longer constricted her breathing. As long as she did what she was planning to do, the swamp couldn't hold her. She felt another cold breeze, but ignored it completely this time. Sweat was dripping from her face as she pulled at her leg with her hands and felt her foot coming free again. How much longer would this go on? Minutes? Hours? Days? Depending on the curse she had been caught in, it could be any of those options. Time could become pretty much meaningless, her grandma had told her once. One could be caught for a lifetime inside such a thing, driven mad by the endlessness of it all. Or it could blow over in just under 5 minutes. That was if the curse was a young one, still weak, and not fattened up enough by fear and agony. She shivered, but not from the cold. Had her grandma ever dabbled in creating something like this? Joanna didn't really want an answer to the question. She knew the old woman had encountered dozens, maybe hundreds of such things. And she also knew how curious and inquisitive her grandma had been. If she had, well, Joanna was glad that she would never have to live through it. It probably was far less friendly than a dead swamp with mud everywhere. Grandma had this curiosity about sharp objects and fire. Another shiver ran through her as she pulled the other leg up and then brought it down in front of her. "Can we just stop this crap?" she yelled out loud, sounding more annoyed than scared. "I'm not terrified of wading through a swamp. It's just cold and miserable." She didn't get an answer. Only another stiff breeze that seemed to aim straight for her face, making her wince. But something shifted in the atmosphere nonetheless. Joanna felt it before she could really hear it. It was like the air around her got stale in an instant, and then somewhere behind her, something fell or jumped into the water of the swamp. Joanna cursed at herself. Why had she talked to it? Why the fuck had she just provoked a curse? Grandma had told her never to do that. Those things were conscious and had their own personalities. Insulting them could make them angry. And once they were angry, everything would get worse. She heard the sound of the thing splashing around in the muddy water somewhere far behind. Joanna craned her neck to look at it. The fog in her back was as thick as the one in front, but she still thought she could see something moving in there. There were dark streaks in the weak light. They changed and shifted in the rhythm of the splashing water, as if someone were walking through the swamp toward her. Joanna tried to tell herself that it wasn't real, but it didn't help. Her body reacted on instinct. She strained her leg, pulled it up, and put it down. Something was coming after her. She could hear it, and even feel its eyes through the fog. They were trained on her. "Calm down," she hissed at herself, but this part of her didn't listen. Her body was trembling as she pulled her leg up. The tree she had wanted to reach was close. If she managed to get there, she could run on dry ground. The thing in the fog was speeding up. She could hear it so clearly, the water splashing softly. Joanna groaned and took another step. The cold breeze hit her in the face again. and made the beads of sweat on her forehead sting her skin. It was coming. She had provoked it. It would catch up to her, grab her, and pull her under. She needed to get out of there. Joanna looked back and could see the black streaks in the white fog again. No, not streaks. Strands. Hair, long and black, it danced in the wind with every step this thing took. Joanna didn't need to see more. Her body went into complete panic mode. She was ripping up her feet and felt the cold mud clinging to her like the cold hands of long dead people. It wouldn't let her get away. She would die here. Her mind was going blank. Where was Grandma? She needed her right now. Joanna heard a loud splash right behind her and felt cold droplets hitting her shoulders. Her body froze completely. She could hear this thing breathing, felt it, standing not even an arm's length behind her. It had caught up to her. She could even smell it. The stench of rot it was giving off made her almost retch. A hand, cold and feeling like bones, touched her shoulder, and she cried out. Joanna opened her eyes and found herself staring at the ceiling of her bedroom. Gone were the dead trees, the stagnant water, and the fog. She was back home, but her heart was racing. Her breathing was coming out ragged, and she felt cold sweat all over her body. Something squelched as she moved her feet, and as she ripped off the covers, Joanna found her lower body caked in cold and wet mud. She almost screamed again, and only her aunt's words kept her from making a ruckus that would have woken up her neighbors. It will try to drive you mad. The curse will take away your sleep. It will play with your perception, and it might even be able to reach out from your dreams. Don't let it get to you. Stay calm and don't do anything rash. She buried her face in her hands, then bit her wrist and screamed into it. Yesterday, she had thought she'd just cruise through this problem, wait for her aunt and grandma to help her, and then take revenge on the dumb bitch that had cursed her. But now, she wasn't so sure anymore. Her grandma had told her that there was a reason why curses were such a popular way of dealing with people one didn't like. Because they work. There was hardly any defense against them, and you didn't even have to fear legal repercussions. Why couldn't Grandma be here right now? She would have saved her. Joanna felt tears shooting into her eyes and shook her head. It wouldn't break her, she told herself. And once it was all over, she would drag that bitch out of her house and through the streets. Joanna took another breath and smelled the odor of rot, then jumped out of bed and ran to the shower. She didn't have the patience to undress or even wait for the water to warm up. She just sat down on the floor of the shower and turned on the faucet. Ice-cold water hit her from above and almost took away her breath. She could feel and hear a whimper coming from her lungs. But this time she kept her mouth shut and bit the insides of her cheeks. It wouldn't break her. The water was growing warmer as it started to drench her hair and clothing. She looked down and could see dirty streaks in the white of the tiles. It reminded her of the thing in the fog, the one who had followed her. Her heart started to race, and she slapped herself across the cheek. Hard. It wouldn't break her. Not tonight, not tomorrow. Never. Joanna stayed almost motionless on the floor of the shower, while the water turned from warm to hot. Her whole body felt far too cold. She was shivering. "What a nasty piece of work," she hissed, then groaned as she lifted her face and let the hot stream wash away the tears and sweat. It was still dark here. The sun hadn't risen yet, but there was no way she would fall asleep again. Once the sun was up, Joanna could call her aunt and ask her for advice, but she would probably need to wait until the cursed object had been delivered to her. She felt this thrumming headache coming up. What she really needed to worry about was the package getting misplaced or stolen. If that happened, she would be completely fucked. Her only other option would be to contact the woman who had sent it to her and beg for her life. She would probably lose her shop, her home, and her dignity in the process. Joanna wanted to cry again, but stopped herself at the last moment. No, nothing had happened yet. The package would arrive at her aunt's and grandma's place in a few hours, and then they would tell her what to do, how to break the curse. Joanna opened her mouth and let some of the hot water run over her tongue before she spat it out onto the floor of the shower. She was completely drenched, but at least the dark streaks from the mud had disappeared down the drain. With a groan, she slowly started moving and stood up. She would need to change her bedsheets as well, Joanna told herself, but the thought only elicited a humorless chuckle. It wasn't important right now. Not as long as her life was in danger. She turned off the shower and stripped out of her wet clothing, throwing the pieces into the washer on her way to the towels. At least she wasn't cold anymore, Joanna told herself, but couldn't even smile. She stepped out of the bathroom and walked into the living room, turning on all the lights in her house. It was 3:30 in the morning. So, about 4 hours until she could call her aunt. Joanna sat down on her couch, put her face in her hands, and sobbed quietly. The sun had already risen, while Joanna was standing by the table with the phone in her hand. In front of her was the small envelope the bitch had sent her the cursed object in. She still remembered holding it up, opening it, and then seeing the flash of metal in the sun as the medallion had fallen out and touched her hand. The spot where it had brushed her skin was still strangely dark. A cursed mark, her grandma would have called it, a sign that she had been cursed. But there was nothing on the envelope other than her address. No sender, not even a postmark. The only reason she knew who had sent her this was the email she had gotten afterward. One from Claire Wensworth, a spoiled rich brat and self-proclaimed socialite who had visited her shop a few months back and had fallen in love with her profession. At least that was what she had claimed. She'd wanted to buy the shop and everything in it, Joanna included. A cold, derisive snort came out of her as she thought about that discussion. No, neither she nor the building was for sale and would never be. The things inside her shop, especially those not in the display cases, were still dangerous to normal people. And this Claire Wensworth seemed like someone who definitely would try to use them for something nefarious. Well, her answer had come in the form of a cursed object, delivered right to her door, and Joanna had been dumb enough to let it touch her skin. Damn amateur, she hissed at herself, as she turned the envelope around in her hands. How could she have been so careless? It could all have been avoided if she had been just a bit more careful. This woman wanted to hurt her. She should have known. Especially once she had noticed the missing address and sender. She must have gotten someone to drop this thing off right at her doorstep. Joanna looked away from the envelope and down at her phone. Please, call. As if on cue, she heard the device ringing and almost jumped back. The name on the display was Auntie, so she knew it was the right person. Yet Joanna still could hardly believe her luck. Scrambling for the phone, she picked it up and took the call in less than 3 seconds.
Joanna?
The voice from the speakers asked. It really was her aunt. She felt relief wash over her and a tear building in the corner of her eye. Everything would be okay now. Auntie? Did you get the medallion? There was a pause on the line, one that made Joanna shiver and tremble. Her aunt should have sounded happy. She should have just come out with how easy that curse would be to either destroy or resolve. That was why she had sent it to her.
I got it. Yeah.
Joanna heard through the speakers. She felt her throat close up. Something was wrong.
The package arrived 20 minutes ago, but to be honest, I was kind of blown away. Who would send you something like this?
Joanna was shaking her head in disbelief. This wasn't how it should have gone. No, her aunt had to know how to help her. Oh, Grandma, have you shown it to Grandma? Another pause on the line. But this one was heavy with sadness.
She's not in a good way, Joanna. There are very few moments where she even knows where she is. Most of the day, she's just sitting there in her rocking chair, just staring out the window. She's not even verbal anymore. I'm sorry to have to tell you this, but I think it's not long now.
Joanna felt a stinging pain in her heart. She hadn't realized how bad it had gotten. The last time she had visited them, a few months ago, Grandma had been fine. And now she was dying? How? When? Joanna stumbled over the words, her voice thick with grief.
It's okay, child.
Her aunt cut in.
Let's concentrate on your problem first. We can talk and you can visit once this is done with.
Swallowing a sob, Joanna straightened up and blinked away a tear.
That medallion you got, it's dangerous. Really, really bad stuff. Like, prohibitively expensive to buy and insanely brutal to create. Whoever has sent this to you wants to kill you.
Joanna was shaking her head. How could this Claire Wensworth have gotten something like this? Did she have connections as well? And why spend so much money on her and the shop? She still couldn't make heads or tails of it all. So, what do I do? She asked to stop her thoughts from spiraling out of control. Her aunt didn't answer immediately, and that fact didn't pass her by unnoticed. She was scared of the curse, Joanna realized, and felt a shiver running through her legs. If only Grandma was still healthy. No, thoughts like that weren't helping.
It already has you in its grasp, Joanna. There's no way for me to sever this connection, and destroying the medallion will only make it worse.
She felt her throat close up as she heard her aunt's voice. The fearful tone. Was that it? Would she die in that swamp and then never wake up in her bed again? How? Why?
But don't worry about it. It's not impossible. I just need to call around, maybe try and reach some of your grandma's old contacts. The problem is, I can't leave her alone in the house. And it's not like I can trust the other people to take care of her if she has one of her fits. But I have already come up with a list of people I'll hit up, and I'm sure at least one of them will be able to help. Only...
Joanna swallowed hard. She already knew what her aunt would say next. It will take some time, right?
Yes, it will. Maybe 1-2 more days. You need to stay alive. Do you understand me? Contact the person who has sent you this. Lie, cheat, steal. Just give me some time, and I promise we will get through this.
Joanna felt this ice-cold chill crawling down her spine. It was like she wasn't in control of her body anymore. Like she was watching herself from outside. I think I need to go now, Auntie. But thank you, she said, and felt her hand beginning to tremble as she ended the call and put down her phone. A single scream came out of her mouth that echoed around the empty house. It was getting dark outside. Still, no call back from her aunt, and no answer to the 4 emails she had written to Claire Wensworth. Joanna had begged to talk to her, offered her everything she wanted if she just got rid of the curse on her. But no reply had been forthcoming. Joanna wanted to scream. Right now, she was sitting in the brightly lit living room, staring at the black and dead TV screen, wondering what else she could do. The curse would invade her dreams again, so she had to stay awake. Which was far easier said than done. She felt tired and exhausted, and the only reason her eyelids hadn't fallen shut was the fear that she couldn't escape now. Joanna stared straight at the TV and didn't move her head. In the corner of her eyes, she could see them already. Pale, dead trees, those of the swamp. The curse was invading her reality. Slowly, they would become more and more real, until one time, when she blinked, she would find herself standing between them, up to her hips in the stinking and foul water. Her heart was racing. She knew she wouldn't be able to escape. Part of her wanted to run away anyway. It would put her in even greater danger. Joanna felt her fingernails digging into the couch. It was coming. Why fight it? What she should concentrate on was staying alive inside the swamp. Her aunt would come through for her, she told herself. All she needed to do was give her time. And the only way to do that was to survive. "Come and get me," she hissed, then closed her eyes. Joanna could feel the shift in the atmosphere immediately. A cold breeze blew past her, and she smelled the sickening stench of rotting water all around her. Cold liquid enveloped her legs up to her hip. She could feel the wet dirt between her toes. Opening her eyes, she could see it now as well. The swamp was all around her. "Just stay alive," she whispered, and began the exhausting work of pulling her foot out of the muck to start walking. She had no idea how long she would be in here, but every second the swamp spent on just annoying her was fine by her. If she had to walk through this mud for half a day before she woke up, she'd be absolutely ecstatic. But it wouldn't make it so easy for her. A part of her won't. No, there was something else in here. Something that was far more dangerous than the cold water and heavy muck. Joanna heard a new noise in the breeze of the wind and froze. Right behind her back, bubbles were rising to the surface, and with them came a new smell. One of rotting meat. She could feel a drop of water splashing up and touching her neck, and Joanna let go of her own leg to straighten up. It wouldn't even give her time to take a single step. The bubbles stopped, and Joanna knew that the thing she had seen in the fog the last time was here. She could feel it so clearly. This malevolent presence. It was slowly rising out of the water right behind her back. Joanna couldn't scream or move. She couldn't even turn around. "Don't look," she hissed at herself, while her mind raced, looking for anything that could help her. Had Grandma told her about this? No. All she had said was to never provoke a curse unless you're certain you can take it. To stay calm and just concentrate on moving forward. Joanna's whole body was shivering. The thing behind her back was still rising up, yet she could already feel its hot breath on her neck. It was the source of the curse, she knew. From it, everything flowed out. If she could destroy it, the whole place would vanish. Only how? Joanna forced herself to turn her head, and immediately all her hopes sank. A pale, naked corpse was standing right behind her, towering over her. She didn't even reach its shoulders, where its long, thin arms hung. Her scream caught in her throat as she looked up and saw the thing's face. Dark black eyes were staring down at her. Stinking mud was dripping from the corner of its mouth that was twisting into what might have once been a smile. A pale hand shot out and grabbed her by the neck before she could utter a sound. It was here, and it was angry. She could feel it. This heat was radiating off of it, yet its fingers felt as cold and hard as marble. Joanna tried to thrash around, but a hand immediately pushed her back into the stinking brown water. In the split second when her head got forced under, Joanna closed her mouth and held her breath. It was pointless. Part of her knew. This thing wouldn't let her back up. But she still had to try. With her feet still stuck in the mud, she couldn't kick, but her hands grabbed hold of the thing's wrist, trying to wrench it off her neck. It didn't budge. Joanna could see nothing but darkness in front of her, felt the stone-like grip of the monster around her throat, and tried to scream. No sound left her mouth. It was angry, she realized. It wanted her to suffer. The thing jerked her around, hard enough to pull her legs out of the dirt. Joanna didn't know what was happening. She got dragged along the ground of the swamp. Tiny stones and sticks poked her skin. Her lungs were burning. The pressure on her neck made her see stars. She was dying, she understood. It would kill her. Her mouth opened to gasp for air, and dirty water shot over her tongue. This was it, she thought. Her last moments. The hand around her neck suddenly pulled her up, and then let go. Joanna felt her head breaking through the surface of the water, and she gasped for air. A cold hand grabbed her by the shoulder again. She could hardly see it there, even though it was right in front of her. The thing was still smiling as more mud dripped from its lips. Now, she realized what it was doing. Pulling her under, letting her go. It would play with her until she succumbed. For hours, maybe even days. Joanna let out a bellowing howl as she felt the pressure on her shoulder pulling her down. Her face touched the surface as suddenly the cold hand disappeared. Joanna looked up at the thing. It wasn't smiling anymore. She could see that its eyes weren't focused on her, but on something else. Groaning, she turned her head to look in the same direction, then almost cried out. There, between two of the dead trees, she saw a person sitting in a rocking chair. Joanna wanted to cry and scream, but her voice caught in her throat. There was an object in the old woman's hand. A medallion. The one she had sent out. "Grandma?" she croaked, just as the monster standing beside her took a step toward the sitting figure. Her grandma was here. But how? Had she taken the cursed object by accident during one of her episodes? "Grandma, run!" Joanna howled and tried to grab hold of the monster, but it shook her hand off as if it were nothing but a fly. The old woman was still looking down at the object. Did she even know where she was? Oh, God, she had to help her. Joanna pulled up her leg and sat it down. The monster was already 3 steps ahead. It was walking through the swamp as if it was nothing. "Grandma!" Joanna screamed, and suddenly the old woman's head shot up. She looked back at her and smiled, but there was something else in her eyes. Something she'd never seen in her grandma's face before. Fear. Joanna wanted to scream again, but the monster was already walking up and onto the small patch of dry ground where the rocking chair stood. The grandma looked at it, and now she reminded her of the woman she had known all her life. There was this fierceness in her expression. She lifted one hand, and the monster suddenly stopped. Joanna felt the atmosphere changing. The water around her was bubbling up, but this time it wasn't from the monster. No. She could see it, cowering, slowly slinking back. The 2 trees on either side of the rocking chair caught fire as a hot wind blew through the swamp. Every single piece of plant life started to burn at once as the water boiled, and the monster let out a shriek. Flames were shooting up into the air all around her, but all she could look at was the burning figure still sitting in the rocking chair. 2 eyes were looking at her from behind the fire. They felt colder, almost alien. Joanna heard the monster cry out as it tried to get back into the water while its whole body started burning. She screamed as well, calling out to her grandma one last time before she blinked and suddenly found herself back on her couch in the living room. A shrill tone pulled her out of her trance, and as she looked down, she could see that her phone was ringing. Auntie was calling, but she already knew what this would be about. Grandma had died with the medallion in her hand. "4 days," Claire thought as she pulled up the big envelope on her desk and smiled at herself. That's how long that little upstart had held out before sending over the documents. She was grinning from ear to ear. What a pleasant way of doing business. Claire cut the top of the envelope with a letter opener, put a hand inside, and suddenly felt something hard and metallic under her fingertips. She pulled it out and let out a chuckle. The cursed medallion. What a dumb joke. She had bought it. She knew how to get rid of the curse. The little upstart apparently didn't realize who she was messing with. Claire blinked and suddenly froze. She could smell something in the air. The stench of burning wood. Something was wrong with it. She looked around and could see trees out of the corner of her eyes. But they weren't pale and cold, but black and burning. Claire wanted to scream, but as she opened her mouth, she found herself no longer in her office, but standing in a dried-out crater. She recognized it immediately. It was a swamp. Only all the water was gone and the trees were on fire. Searing hot air blew past her as she turned around, then staggered. There, at the edge of the small crater she was standing in, she could see someone. A figure, covered in flames, yet sitting on what looked like a burning chair. The heat it was giving up was unbearable. She screamed, and as the eyes of the thing on the throne fell upon her, her skin burst into flames.